if you have a relationship with alcohol that you don't want or that isn't working for you or is causing you a problem in any way, there's so much more life for you on the other side of that. Why does the world act like alcohol is the answer, even while it is creating problems of its own?
On the Alcohol Myth podcast, we pull back the curtain so you can see what's really going on with alcohol and what life could be like without it.
We are coaches trained in This Naked Mind and effective liminal psychology who fell for the alcohol myth for decades. Now we help people take back control of their lives by changing their relationship with alcohol from the inside out.
You don't need to wait for a rock bottom. You don't need more willpower. You just need a new way to understand what you are feeling and why you are reaching for that next drink.
So let's dig in. All right, today we are talking about the idea of stringing together your first few alcohol-free days. This episode is kind of like so you decided to take a break from alcohol for whatever reason. Maybe if you're listening to this close to when it's recorded, you might be coming into a dry January situation. Or maybe you've just found this and it's, you know what? It's time to take a little pause and see about this whole setting aside the booze thing for at least a couple of days. And so Ellen and I are going to be talking today about those critical first few days and things that you might be considering as you move into them. But first off, Ellen, A, how you doing? And B, um, I'd love to hear about some of your first few days of AF, maybe even like first few days before they were your forever days.
Mm, yeah. Well, it's great to be here. Good to see you. I'm doing well. And yeah, I think back to, gosh, when I took my first break, it was not my last break. It was what started me on this whole journey of curiosity about being alcohol free. When I took my first break, all I knew was I couldn't keep going on the way I was going. I needed to make a change. I needed to um just something had to change. And I had a very specific, can't remember if I've talked about this before, but I had a very specific situation where like I needed to not drink Monday through Thursday for 3 weeks in a row. My daughter, my 17-year-old daughter, was signed up for driver's ed. I had to drive her there 7 p.m. and I had to pick her up at 9 p.m. And that was not a time where I would usually be able to drive. And my husband was traveling. It was going to be on me. I knew it was going to be on me. And I was frankly terrified because it had been probably years since I had had a Monday through Thursday during the week without drinking. And I mean, this is till 9 p.m. too, right? It's not just
Mhm.
like, make sure you can take your kid to soccer practice and then come home. And frankly, one of the things that happened with me personally was that some of the guardrails went off for me the years leading up to that because I was living in Shanghai, China with my husband's job. He worked for a company that took us overseas. We lived there for 6 years and I was not allowed to drive there. So I actually didn't have to drive, could not drive for 6 years, basically. And what that meant for me was that I never had to have that guardrail of having to be able to drive in the evening, either for myself, for friends, but certainly not for my kids. And so when this happened to me, this her signing up for driver's ed, which I was super excited about because she needed to learn how to drive, and I knew I wanted her to do it. But it was, you can imagine how uncomfortable that is to be like, I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I was freaked out.
Mm.
Which led me to actually reach out for help for the first time, and I signed up for an online community that helped me get through those first few days. And so I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is like community, other people that are doing this same thing, incredibly important. And then the other thing that really comes to mind for me is planning. Like I had to plan
Mm,
down to the minute what I would be doing in those first few days that wasn't drinking. I had to know what was coming. I was, and I think this is really important to think about because sometimes we think, oh, well, my plan is to not drink, right? Like, I mean, that seems pretty
done.
basic. Like, yeah, done. My plan is all I have to do is not drink, which seems like it should be no problem. But when you're used to drinking every night, it's like, okay, well, I need to know what I'm going to do instead of drinking then, and it needs to be really clear because when that space opens up and our brain just automatically wants to go to what it's always done and it doesn't know what to do instead, um, that's where, it can get really tricky. So, like planning down to the minute when I was going to eat, what I was going to eat, what I was going to do during those hours, making
Mm.
sure I had all kinds of snacks and goodies and treats to get me through those hours and going to bed early. I mean, those were kind of, the things that were really important to me. I mean, I have a whole list of things here that I did during those first few weeks that we can get into, but that really like being able to talk to other people that could experience the same thing because I could do a dry January with my husband and it was it felt completely unsupportive to me because his relationship with alcohol was so different than mine. He could just be like,
Mm.
"Yeah, we're doing dry January." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, we're doing it." Meanwhile, in my mind, I'm like, "There's no freaking way I'm doing it. I don't know how to do it."
Oh my
So being
goodness.
around people that are also struggling and it might be hard for them made a big impact on me.
Because then you feel less alone, right?
Mm.
And if you're,
Hmm.
my wonderful, amazing wife also has a very different relationship with alcohol than I do. And for her, it was always I can take it or leave it. It's not really a big thing. Rarely would she have more than two drinks. And it was kind of strange for her when I started to pull away from it because she was like, oh, it didn't seem like that big of a deal, but I was so adept at kind of covering over, making excuses, hiding how much, drinking was affecting me. But and so it felt, I think that element that you were talking about of community is so important because oftentimes when you're drinking more than you want to, you feel absolutely alone and totally isolated in the experience because so much of it's happening right here, just and nowhere else. And you don't
Mm.
really you don't really see it in even popular culture unless somebody's, a real problem, right? And that's not
Mm.
very
Hmm.
relatable if you are still, thinking of yourself as somebody, that's functioning and doing things and accomplishing things and finding a community that's committed to improving themselves and committed to vulnerability and sharing the experience and things like that. Like um, sh shame has a hard time living where there's, light and a community can really help you share a light with that. I found a community was an early part of my experience too when I decided to like really make a change. I
Mm.
found the stop drinking subreddit on Reddit, and that's the first place where I saw people talking about what it was like to want to stop drinking and have a hard time with it and sharing experiences and sharing wins and celebrating each other. And that's also the first place where I ever heard of This Naked Mind, which obviously has been so impactful for both of us. But community is huge.
Yeah, I mean, when I even think about that time for me, like who could I have told that I had fear and anxiety around not knowing if I could not drink so that I could take my daughter to driver's ed. I mean, that
Yeah.
even just me saying that out loud on this podcast, like I've said it now enough times and it's actually on my website because it was such a big deal for me. But at the time there, I could not have told anyone that. I could not have told my husband that. I could not have told. I was so ashamed that was a thing. And then when I, joined this community and was able to talk about it and hear other people that also had similar fears and anxieties. And when I said that, nobody was like, oh my God, you're a terrible person. It was like, oh my gosh, me too. And there's something really, really healing in hearing that you're crazy insanity that you think you're the only one going through. is actually like a shared experience, and there's really nothing there's nothing wrong with you, you just entrapped in the snare of alcohol like so many others before you, and that will come after you. And that was, yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. You did the 3 weeks. Were you a weekend warrior at that point? You know, it's like Thursday. Thank goodness I can have a couple of drinks. Or did you like hold on to it for those 3 weeks? And what happened after those 3 weeks?
I held on to it for those 3 weeks. I joined a 21-day challenge and I did the 21 days. I actually ended up doing like 24 days. And I think what kept me going was like I literally had not had more than 2 or 3 days consecutively in probably 10 years. And
Mm.
so when I had the first 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, by the time Friday came, like I was feeling so much better, right? Like I wasn't waking up so hungover. I was still tired because I still wasn't sleeping great because it takes a while for alcohol to get out of the system, but like I was feeling really proud of myself and was just like, you know what, I think I'm gonna, and because of that community, there were people in that community that were in it for the 21 days that, that not everybody signed up for Monday through Thursday of that. Most people signed up for a 21-day challenge. So and it was during October too. So it was like a sober October kind of a challenge, very similar to like a dry January that we're going into now. So I just felt this momentum and I thought, well, I'm just gonna see what it's like to go because I kind of got excited. I'm like, can I really have a weekend without drinking? I mean, I had not had a weekend without drinking, like I said, in a decade, more probably. I mean, the prospect of that was like blew my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, can I? It became a little bit of a challenge, maybe.
I love that. And one of the things that I found when I was starting to string some days together was I don't think that anything, how do I say this? I don't know. I learned so much about listening to myself and observing my own thinking by redefining and working on my relationship with alcohol.
Mm,
Because all of that time that used to be spent ruminating on, like, when am I going to have my next drink? How much am I going to drink? Am I going to feel okay? Is my health okay? Yada, yada, yada. That time instead was spent like kind of checking in on myself and, watching myself have an urge to drink at something, or watching myself experience a craving and then move through it. And it was a kind of a beautifully like reconnecting experience for me, because so much of my relationship with alcohol was about numbing and kind of covering over feelings of anxiety. And like, I felt under a lot of pressure, and I didn't feel like I was good enough, and it was numbing all those things. But then remove the alcohol and you're left with observing yourself navigating this experience without that kind of big woolly wet blanket. And it was such an experience of self-discovery early on. um and what a beautiful gift to give yourself, like, that ability to reconnect, especially after a few days where you start to experience that clarity that you were talking about.
yeah, and as you're saying that, it's making me think about like I think one of the things that was so motivating for me to keep going those few days was I think I didn't. Well, I didn't for 10 years. I didn't believe I could not drink. I had convinced
Mm.
myself that I couldn't. Like I had tried so many times. I had tried all the rules. And so I had. There was no self trust there to think that I was capable of getting through a day, a week, a weekend without drinking. I mean, how many times did I promise myself I'd do that and failed? And so even just having that Monday through Thursday, it was like what you were saying that you kind of experience yourself in a craving, and then because I'd made this decision and I had this really strong guardrail, it was like, okay, I don't have a choice but to experience this and not drink.
Mm,
And what I learned about myself in the process of doing that, like a, it's not going to completely bowl me over and kill me to experience a craving, which, I think I had so much fear around that. It sounds silly now, but I was like, well, I can't do that. And then I had the fears around, well, I'll need it to sleep. I'll need it to, like, I mean, every excuse I could come up with, right? That I thought that I needed it for, but it wasn't just excuses. It was like, I believed that. I believed in my complete dependence on this substance to make it through the evening. And so that meant that I didn't believe that I was capable on my own to do it. And so for me to show myself in those 4 days that I did it, it was
mm.
like, wait, what? Like it kind of blew open this narrative that I had that alcohol was an absolute requirement.
Yeah, that experience of like redefining how you think about yourself, like the story that you're operating with about yourself is um mirrors my experience too. I thought that I needed it for every little thing and that I was really afraid that life would be dull and joyless without it. And
Mm,
then to discover that it's actually in fact quite the opposite was was so exciting. But it didn't happen for me like I mean that certainly took more time and more work on myself, right? Like when I very first took a break, I was still very much laboring under the illusion that I was really missing out on something. And that fear of missing out, I think, keeps a lot of people from stringing together very many days because maybe they have people in their life around them that are, drinking in front of them and it takes them right back into that old pattern, that old routine. Um, for me, it was a big fear of like, okay, well, I've strung together a few alcohol-free days now. What does that mean? Am I somebody that just like doesn't
mm,
drink anymore? Do I have to be somebody that never again shall the wine cross my lips? Like, is that who I
mm,
am now? And
mhm,
thinking about it long term, especially in the early days, was cripplingly terrifying for me. And
mm,
so I think that that's a word of advice that I would give to anybody thinking about taking a break from alcohol is don't make it about forever. Make it
mm,
about today,
mhm,
with an eye to tomorrow and hold on to it with I don't know, just I think it's important and good to make a decision, but also don't make it so weighty and crippling and meaningful that it becomes kind of a millstone around your neck and like
mm.
it turns into this whole thing. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's making me think about curiosity, right? It's like
Mm,
instead of making a decision like I'm never going to drink again, or I'm now a non-drinker, or all these things, they can be useful in the right circumstances. But I think especially initially when we're just trying to get those first few days, yeah, it feels like a huge. I mean, I would have never started this discovery of learning to love being alcohol free if I thought that I had to do that from the beginning. Like that was not, it was not what I wanted. It was like I would have been like, hell no. I mean, that was part of the reason I resisted even doing dry Januaries because I was like, well, I don't want to be a person who has to say no to alcohol. Like I had a completely different identity. I'm like, I don't, that seems too rigid. As whenever we put these big um forever things on anything, I think that's a huge red flag. I'm curious though, Jonathan, because I don't think I know, like your first day, second day, third day, like what did you do? How was that for you? And like was it a dry January? Was it like how did you like actually just string a few days together?
I think for me, things got to a point where I freaked myself out enough to want something different. And so I remember staying up all night drinking and, passing out on the couch and my wife coming down and immediately getting into an argument with her because I had, like spent the night on the couch playing video games was my cover. And I felt so sick and so terrible. And in spite of being a super heavy, blackout drinker, at that time I was still like running every morning. And so I still drunk, got up, threw all my stuff to go running. I just remember, you know, running in the park for the first 100 yards or something and just breaking down because I felt so terrible. I felt
Mm.
so low. I think it was raining too, classic. And I came back and I was like, I apologized to my wife and I was, I'll do better. And it's probably a conversation we'd had before, but this time I had freaked myself out and I felt so bad that I decided to try to look for some help because I also thought that this was something that I had to do 100% on my own. And so I was big into Reddit at the time. I found the Stop Drinking subreddit. People were recommending the This Naked Mind book, and I got the audio book that day and I started listening to it. And really through listening to that, one of the cool things about the This Naked Mind approach as opposed to more traditional kind of 12-step AA approaches is that it is very led from curiosity and being kind to yourself and understanding the science behind what alcohol is doing. And it doesn't start with a hard sell of this book is going to make you never want to drink again, right? Like, because if it had said that, I'd have been like, all right, I'm out, right? Like, because I couldn't imagine doing life without alcohol. It starts with the idea of like, well, by the end of this book, you'll be able to make a decision about how much you want to drink or how little you want to drink. I was like, that sounds great because for years I tried moderating and, like that wasn't successful. For years I'd known like this is wrecking my health. This is, making me short in my relationships. And this is making me, yada, yada. I feel terrible. Like
Mm.
I physically and mentally just felt so low so often. So I'd try to take a break and I'd moderate. I wasn't an everyday drinker. Like I'd probably probably 3 days out of the week, but those 3 days would be very, very heavy,
Mm.
was my kind of thing. So I'd like recover and, do a sober day feeling kind of 50% and then drink again, right? So I never felt like all the way 100%. Um, and so I'd moderate, I'd cut back, and then like slowly but surely I'd be drinking just as much or more than before. Anyways, by the end of listening to This Naked Mind, most of the time I would listen to it while I was on my runs. So I'd try to do like I'd probably do a chapter or two a day. Um, it just got to a point where it didn't like I'd look at the whiskey in my glass, whiskey is my drink, um, and it's hard to unlearn what you learn, right? Like when you know, and learning for me about everything that it was doing to my health and my body with my chemistry, like all those things, I just couldn't look at it the same. And it lost its appeal to me in that time. And it's not something that I was like, this is going to be a forever thing or it was just kind of a like I don't think I drink anymore kind of thing
Mm.
for me. Um and that lasted for like 2.5 years where it wasn't a big factor in my life. And then around COVID, I lost my dad suddenly, and I felt I was so heartbroken, and um, it, I felt so bad, and I just wanted to not feel so bad. And I think it was at, I think it was at a Mexican restaurant, like getting ready to go back from the funeral. and I got a margarita and it was fine. Like I just got a margarita and, I didn't have seven of them. I just had one margarita and it was
Hmm.
sugary and it was, palatable, and I didn't have the tools that I have now, right? And so that opened the door, and then slowly but surely old patterns came back and um eventually just hit another point where again I feel terrible, fight with the wife, resolution
Mm.
to do something differently. And I remembered how wonderful the This Naked Mind book was again, and I read it again, and boom, just like a light
So
switch,
cool.
I was able to
Hmm.
to quit again. And that's really what brings me here, is because I was like, oh my God, this is so powerful. I have to understand how this works.
Mm.
So that's what caused me to start this whole journey with the certification and This Naked Mind and meeting you, Ellen. So
Yeah. It's so cool to hear that because it's like, I mean, it took it for me. Like it wasn't. I read the book, and it helped, but it didn't. That wasn't the end of it for me. I experienced a lot of drinking after then, and a lot of coaching and community, and like really working on it for like a year. But it's just what's so interesting to me is like it's how everybody's different, and how, I
mhm.
do believe like I feel like because I'm working with some different clients right now, and it's like different. Everyone has such a different way of absorbing information, learning material, relating it to their life experience, and I feel like it doesn't matter if it's something you read in a book, something that you happened in a conversation with a coach. It could be something that happened on the street with a stranger that says something that just somehow hits you in a certain way that like things just shift. And it sounds like for you, like you read the book and your mindset just shifted and you could no longer look at that glass of whiskey the same. So it wasn't like you had to employ some of these tactics, like, things that we work on with clients as coaches. It was just like, yeah, it was almost like a magic trick, it sounds like.
It felt like a magic trick. I think that's so right. Like everybody's journey is so different. Their experience is so different. The things that bring them to drink are so different and so
Mm.
personal. And that's been a huge learning for me, like in my own experience with quitting, where yeah, it was pretty easy for me to walk away from it, but then it was also pretty easy for me to pick it back up again later when I had like this, not easy, but like it
Mm.
the door apparently was still cracked open, right? And so
Mm.
it did take more work on the back half to develop the skills and resources and honestly the ability to reflect and work on myself that led me to the place where I am now, where like I feel like I can take responsibility for my experiences and the way that I relate to them, and I take responsibility for the things that I think, and I take responsibility for the things that I say. And that isn't a result of deciding to go alcohol free, but I wouldn't have gotten to the point where I can do that if I was still drinking, if that makes sense. And that's one of the
100%.
reasons
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about this work, is I
Mm.
really think that if you have a relationship with alcohol that you don't want, or that isn't working for you, or is causing you a problem in any way, there's so much more life for you on the other side of that.
Mm.
And I've seen it time and again with myself, with my wife, who has a very different relationship with alcohol. Like, she was like barely two glasses of wine a week kind of person. She's quit. My clients that they've quit, what it does is it's the first thing that opens the door to everything else. And it doesn't seem like it would be this huge I mean, maybe it does seem like a huge unlock, but for me, it seems like it's a relatively small thing in the grand scope of things,
Mhm.
but it is the keystone that really unlocks everything else. It's incredible.
So true. It's like that, sometimes it's said it's like the first domino that has to fall for all the other ones
Yes.
to be able to fall into place. And we met at the coach training, which was how long since you had given up drinking the second time, did you start coach training? Because I like that was, and the reason I asked that is because, well, everything you're talking about, this sort of self growth, you may have come to it from many places, but having gone through that coach training, like we are our first clients, right? We do so much of the work on ourselves to be able to learn how to help others. And I feel like, again, it's that community. We did that in community with other coach trainees, and this whether you're, unlocking your potential after you've given up alcohol, or whether you're trying to give up alcohol in the first place, this element of shared spaces where we can really talk about it and open up and do this work, because it's very personal work, but it's so helpful to be able to do it in community.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, the second time, by the time I was, I think it'd only been 3 months
Mm,
since I'd quit the second time, because I had years under my belt before, but
mhm.
the second time was 3 months and then I was in the training program. And so for me, it hasn't been just a whole, some coaches have 10 years under their belt and then they go get certified and stuff like that. For me, the experience of drinking more than I want to is not some kind of fuzzy, distant memory of like, that was a different person, right? Like
Mm,
it's
mhm.
still something that is not hard for me to recall, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
it hasn't been a whole hell of a lot of time. But the work and growth that's happened in that time has been transformative and life changing. And um, yeah,
Yeah, and speaking of community, because I believe this episode is going to be uh, aired at end of December or early January, if you are thinking about taking a break in January, participating in some way, shape, or form with Dry January, This Naked Mind, who both Jonathan and I, got certified with, has a live alcohol experiment, which is a 30-day, it typically it's this is something you can do anytime for free. It's something that This Naked Mind offers. It's a 30-day alcohol experiment where you get daily videos, and you can be in a community. But every so often they run one of these live ones where there's live coaching. Is it every day of the week? Because actually our my co-host here, Jonathan, is going to be one of the coaches during the live alcohol experiment. So maybe I'll let you talk about it. But it's just such a cool opportunity to be able to be in community with other people that are trying to do the same thing that you are, and where you can really be open and share and get a ton of really valuable resources that could support you along the way. So can you share a little bit more about the live alcohol experiment and where people can find out about it too?
yeah, it's really exciting. For the first time in a few years, actually, they're bringing back the live alcohol experiment, and it's going to run all through January. So it's 31 days of videos from Annie Grace. You learn her methodology. You like get to experience the exercises, reflections. It's all the stuff that's kind of captured in the Think in Mind book, but it's presented in a very approachable course, like an online course kind of format. Um, Alan mentioned the community aspect of it too. So like you're going to be in there with a bunch of other people who are committed to making a difference in how they feel about their alcohol. And the really special thing is that for the live alcohol experiment, every single day there's a coach there talking live about the content. And so I'm totally honored to be one of the coaches hired for it. My time will be Sundays, so I hope you join us on Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern. And basically, the coach is going to talk a little bit about the material for that day, but then open it up to questions from the participants. And coaching like this is usually a very kind of high ticket item, and it's, highly sought after. Um, we're all very well trained and have great insights and a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experience to share. And this is a wonderful opportunity to go and experience some of that. I think that this year the live alcohol experiment is $67, but there's a special right now where if you pre-order Annie Grace's new book, which is Live Naked AF, it's coming out January 2nd, I think, and you show proof of purchase, then you can get into the live alcohol experiment and have daily coaching from trained This Naked Mind coaches for $7, which is
Wow.
for a month. It's an incredible deal. So I'd encourage you, if you're thinking at all about doing Dry January, then this is a wonderful, hugely supportive container to have access to.
And I'll just say from personal experience, I don't know if it was the last one they offered, but I did a July live alcohol experiment in 2023, I think it was. And my last drink was in October of 2023. I mean, it had an impact on me. It wasn't my last drink, but there were, it was a huge stone laid on my path to alcohol freedom that month of pretty intense content, coaching, community. And if you are in that mindset where you really want to make a change and you're really committed to it, gosh, that's an incredible deal. I mean, and you get the book out of it too. So, which I'm excited to uh to get my hands on as well and see what Annie's got up her sleeve next. So,
Yeah,
yeah, exciting stuff.
it is exciting stuff. So because we need to close, but before
Mm.
we totally close, let's just give two or three quick points on things to be thinking about as you're stringing together your first couple of days. We've talked a lot about community. Community is huge. Reach out. You don't have to find community in a church basement in a 12-step kind of situation. But if that's the thing that's going to be speaking to you, then go find it there, right? There are great online communities. Ellen and I would love to be part of your community. If you reach out to us at thealcoholmyth@gmail.com, we'd love to be in contact with you and hear your story and be part of your community. Take a look at This Naked Mind, whether you're looking at the live alcohol experiment or just the alcohol experiment, which is always running. You could start it at any day of the year. That's a great resource to find community as well. And there are all kinds of great online sober communities. So community is a huge one if you're looking to string together some alcohol-free days. What else would you suggest to people, Ellen?
Yeah, well, I already said plan, which I think is really critical,
Mhm.
and I'll include planning dinner. Like if you're an evening drinker, make sure that you know what you're going to have for dinner and eat a good dinner because when we're full, we're less likely to reach for a drink. So that is a big tip for me. But also, the one thing that I would want to throw out there is make this joyful. Like this doesn't
Mm,
need to be about deprivation. There's like think about you're taking the one thing away that feels so big, but it's one thing, and you can add in so many other things. And I would really like think about having daily treats for yourself, whether they be,
mm,
physical treats or something, I don't know, whatever a treat means to you, a bath, a chocolate candy bar, whatever feels good, fresh flowers, have some treats lined up for yourself and also some fun things like get yourself a massage, go to a movie, go really make it joyous as much as you possibly can because we're going to want to do things that feel good. We're not going to want to do things that feel like deprivation and sad and lonely and I can't do what I want to do. Give yourself full permission to do all the things you want to do. The only thing you can't do is swallow that alcohol. I mean, that's really it. What
I
about you?
love
What's
that
one of your
plan.
number one tip?
Oh, treating yourself is huge. I'll co-sign that 100%. Um, I think that in addition to community and in addition to planning, the biggest thing that I would suggest to people is just to hold yourself kindly. We are not any stronger if we beat ourselves up for our shortcomings or for the hardships that we're experiencing. And if you find it difficult to string together a couple of alcohol-free days, the thing that's going to make it impossible is to beat yourself up for not being able to string together a couple of alcohol-free days. We never got stronger by um, denigrating ourselves. So hold yourself kindly as you're going through this. Hold yourself in compassionate curiosity, and let every day, let every urge that comes, no matter the outcome of that urge, whether you decide to give into it or decide to fight it, let that be a new experience or a new touch point, a new lesson that you're gaining wisdom and insight from. And when you start stacking those together over a little bit of time, you're going to find that you have success in moving towards your goal of stringing together some alcohol-free days.
I love that. This isn't a win-lose. It's a change in how you want to experience alcohol over the long term, right? I mean, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So, yeah, just be kind to yourself and learn as you go.
Yeah. As long as you're still playing the game, you haven't lost. All
Hmm. Hmm.
right. Well, that's it for us today. I've been Jonathan,
And I'm Ellen.
and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Myth Podcast.
If this episode sparked something for you, we'd love to hear about it.
Send your questions, stories, or ideas for future episodes to thealcoholmyth@gmail.com.
We read every message. We really do.
Take good care of yourself. We'll see you next time.